Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of AM Minnesota. We always enjoy doing the program, but today we're really looking forward to our show because we're going to talk about Veterans Day coming up on Saturday, and we can't honor our veterans enough. The three honored guests this Saturday at the Rice County Courthouse Central Veterans Association observances of Veterans Day all served together in the Red Bull Division, all from this community 10 years ago. And that's what they're remembering, the 10-year anniversary of the deployment of the Red Bull Division. Travis Quinlan, David Kirkpatrick, Paul Van Dyke are the three individuals that are going to be honored on Saturday. Last evening, I had a nice conversation with Mr. Kirkpatrick and a nice conversation with Mr. Quinlan, and we had scheduled Mr. Van Dyke hopefully to be with us today. Veterans Day, of course, is always on the 11th of November. It doesn't matter what day it falls on. The 11th hour, the 11th day, the 11th month. So flag raising will be at 11 in the morning on Saturday, and you are encouraged to attend on the north lawn of the courthouse by the Veterans Memorial there, across from Fairway Foods. Noon lunch will be served at the Faribault American Legion. It's always delicious. And, of course, if you attend the lunch, I'm sure the gentleman will be speaking. I'm positive that Mr. Quinlan and Mr. Kirkpatrick will be speaking, and I got a sneaking hunch Mr. Van Dyke will be too because, well, he does some radio work, so he's not adverse to making some commentaries. Although I will say, speaking on the radio is a little different than speaking up in front of people. So again, we hope that you'll observe Veterans Day wherever you are listening. If it's in the Kenyon, Wanamingo communities, if it's up in Lakeville, if it's over in Waterville, Elysian, or Morristown communities, if you're in the Zumbrota, Mazeppa, you get the idea. We want you to remember Veterans Day, November the 11th. And I did ask both the gentlemen, Travis Quinlan and David Kirkpatrick, in our tapes last night, our taped interviews, what about Veterans Day, what it means to them. And both of them gave different answers, which I think is very cool because it will affect them differently. So that's the show today. Tomorrow, Troy Dunn will be in studio. I'm not sure if we'll have any other folks joining him talking about Winter Hazard Awareness Week, which is this week, started on Monday. Winter Weather Awareness, Hazard Awareness Week is this week. It's always toward the end of fall before the calendar official start of winter is what they say, but obviously this isn't toward the end of fall. We're in mid-November. But we've had the Halloween snowstorm. I think this got pushed up shortly after that, to be honest, the Winter Hazardous Awareness Week. So we're looking forward to that tomorrow. Some folks from the Fall Faribault High School play, who, by the way, we did have some folks join us out at Faribault Interiors because we've expanded that to include all youth, not just sports youth, Faribault Interior show on Saturday mornings. We've invited, I sent an email out to the AD there at Faribault High School and invited him to send out and, people that are involved in robotics or I don't care what it is. It can be band, it can be choir. Anything that youth are involved in, we want to hear about it. So, get AM Minnesota today. Veterans Day is on Saturday, and we were hoping to have all three of the individuals being honored guests from the Red Bull Division. Mr. Quinlan could not join us here on air, neither could Mr. Kirkpatrick. And I did speak with Paul Van Dyke and was hoping he'd be in studio today to visit about the observance of Veterans Day on Saturday. As I mentioned, we did tape segments with Travis Quinlan and David Kirkpatrick last evening for playback here today. And again, I'll remind you that the Veterans Day observances are on the north lawn of the courthouse, where the memorial is. Flag raising is at 11 in the morning on Saturday. It's a very brief, poignant event. These three gentlemen will be involved in the flag raising duties. And the reason why they were chosen is the Central Veterans Association is remembering the 10-year anniversary of the deployment of the Red Bull Division. So that's why these 3 folks were chosen to be involved in the flag raising. And I certainly want to thank the Central Veterans Association for getting me some information so that I could get in touch with these gentlemen and have them on the airwaves. I think you'll enjoy our conversation. I know I did. Tomorrow, it's Winter Weather Awareness on our show. So without further ado, we'll start with Travis Quinlan. Travis Quinlan joins us here on our AM Minnesota show as we take a look at the Veterans Day event that's coming up this Saturday. Boy, Travis, it's got to be pretty cool to be one of the 3 individuals that are honored guests from the Red Bull Division.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it. I was asked months ago to participate, and I gladly said yes, unlike the first time I was asked 10 years ago to give a speech, and I was a little more hesitant then. I've come a long way and learned a lot over the last 10 years since returning from Iraq, so I'm looking forward to this, and it'll be a good event. I get to share some stories about Iraq and so will the other guys.
Sure. I'm not going to make you go down memory lane too much here, but do you remember what you were thinking when you first were told that you're going to be deployed to the Middle East?
I was excited, actually. It was something I was looking forward to. I heard rumors circulating for quite some time about it. I attended infantry school for that reason. So once the deployment order, the WARNO is what they refer to it as, came out to our unit, I was one of the first to volunteer. They asked for volunteers first. Those who wanted to do it could put their name on paper and let them know that you want to go, and so I did that. I was a part of the Mankato Maverick Battalion ROTC at the time at Mankato State, but I notified them that I'm no longer interested in pursuing ROTC and that I want to deploy, so I was excited.
So when you flew in country, were you thinking to yourself, why did I do this?
I had a great sustained level of motivation. I really was, and I was looking forward to it. There was slight nervousness just because of the unknown. You never know what you're quite getting into despite your training. So there was still that nervousness of what is truly to come, what exactly are we going to be doing for our mission. However, the excitement kind of trumped that a little bit.
Oh, sure. So, adrenaline is an amazing thing, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. Especially when you're 19 or 20 years old, you know. You're not necessarily thinking about the dangers. You know they exist, but you never truly think, like, this is going to happen to me. We had a really good unit, a lot of really good friends I deployed with. I think that also helped the situation.
Did you deploy with the 2 gentlemen that you are being honored with on Veterans Day?
Yeah, I did. We've remained friends this entire time. You develop some pretty close bonds when you deploy together.
Sure. And were you good friends in high school?
No. Well, Paul, I was not. David Kirkpatrick, I've known him since probably kindergarten, and he enlisted in the National Guard right after I did in high school. So yes, I've known him for a very long time.
I know David said it was dangerous over there.
Threats were very real, very ever-present. You couldn't let your guard down. There were some days where you could not see anything. Nothing happened. The next day, you'd be hit by an IED, maybe any other threat that might exist. It was there. It was all there. You just couldn't let your guard down. The second you became complacent was the time that you'd be injured.
I know you come from a lineage of veterans, right?
I do. Yep. My father served, and his brother, and my brother was in for a while, and so yeah, there's been people in my family that have all served in the military.
Did they share any stories with you before you did this, or did you do this all on your own?
No, I didn't do this on my own, but they definitely shared stories with me. Growing up with my dad being in the Navy, 4 years active duty in a submarine, I heard a lot of very cool stories about his deployment, and that definitely excited me, and I wanted to be a part of something like that and serve. It wasn't just because of him, though, that I chose this, or that his stories provoked me to join. It was more or less the honor of serving in the military. That's more or less what he pushed on me. It wasn't, I want you to join, it was more like, here's why you should.
Right.
And here's the benefit of it for our country type of thing. So that's why I did it.
But you didn't join the Navy, Travis.
I don't like the swim. Don't like the water. Yeah, you forget the Navy. No, I like the whole concept of staying on my feet and with a rifle in my hand. So I thought the Army might be a better choice for me.
How many tours did you do?
I'm still in the Minnesota National Guard right now, and I've been in Guard now going on. I got a little over 14 years in, so
So you could get called again at any time, you're saying?
Yeah.
Did you just so far do the one tour, or have you done multiple tours?
I've done the one tour with promotions, moving into different battalions and different brigade combat teams, I guess. I've somehow avoided 2 deployments that other units did, unfortunately. So I've only done the 1 deployment right now.
Over 25 years this country has been in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel sometimes like, why are we doing this?
I don't try to get too much behind the why of our missions overseas necessarily. I know overall there's U.S. interests, and there's the level of terrorism, I believe, is just as present, just as dangerous out there today than it ever has been. And I know it's just like recently how we lost some U.S. special operations in both Afghanistan and Africa, and the threats are real and ever present. They're out there, and so I don't often question the mission. I just try to do what I'm told. By
the time I was of draft age, but it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And I told my dad that, and I said, I don't know that I could fight for a country that wouldn't let their soldiers actually fight. And he said, you just do what they tell you to do. That's your job. Right. You can't get into the politics of it. And hopefully we learn from Vietnam not to be political. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, Vietnam was, unfortunately for the people that have served, but fortunately for my generation, I think we learned a lot from Vietnam. Me personally, I've learned so much from the Vietnam veterans just because of how they were treated. And you look at OIF and OEF, Operation New Dawn, all these veterans of today's generation, we have what we have today essentially from the Vietnam veterans. You look at, for example, the vet centers, counseling centers for post-traumatic stress disorder and readjustment issues that started in 1979. That was all because of the Vietnam veterans. The need for PTSD was obviously established in 1980 by the American Psychological Association because of the Vietnam veterans. So there's all these things that came from the unfortunate experiences from Vietnam. So for me personally, it's just I've learned a lot from them, and it's true to the extent that I like to just do my mission. I like to just do what I'm told. But I know, like what you said, when you were just coming of draft age when the war ended, it's hard not to have a bad taste in your mouth in the 70s because of all the political nature and the political discourse and the protesting and things like that. I might have been in the same boat.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Lots changed, including the fact, Travis, that you can be in country within hours. World War II, my dad jumped on a ship, and it was days to get over to Europe and serve in France. Days to come back home. You can be back home within hours, too,
That's true. Yeah, times have definitely changed from those guys that served before us. We have a lot more advantages, I think, just as far as technology goes, but a lot of the same hardships is actually ever present, too.
So how does it feel to be honored this Saturday? It's got to be just an amazing feeling.
I think it is a good feeling, and I do like the opportunity to speak now more than I did years ago, obviously, especially pertaining to veteran issues. I've worked with veterans in my civilian experiences, so the more I've got to do that, the more stories I've heard. So Saturday, it's not just like why I want to thank veterans, or why we should. I'm kind of sharing some information about what I think about the veterans themselves. And for example, that veterans are 1% of the population that serve their country, and they experience a lot of hardships in the process of doing so. So I think that's important to remember, and that's why I'm kind of excited to do this.
I'll leave you with this. Because I asked your cohorts this too, what does Veterans Day mean to you?
Well, what Veterans Day means to me is honoring the service and the sacrifices that veterans made. It's to also recognize those that are serving despite not carrying the title of veteran yet, but they're still serving in this country. Like I said earlier, there's still guys that we have in Afghanistan and Iraq and Africa and Korea. They're all over the globe right now. And so it's really just taking that moment of the year, that one day of the year, to pause and to really reflect, and also self-reflect on your own service or those around you, family members, and just kind of think to yourself, wow, look what they actually did do. It's like when I think about my dad's service, doing 6-month deployments at sea in a submarine. It's like, God, that couldn't have been easy. I wouldn't have done it. So it's really understanding that, recognizing it, and saying thank you to those that did serve. But then also passing along that knowledge, those veterans' stories, to the next generation. So I think this is one of those holidays that's truly intergenerational. It's something that you want to give to your kids, give to your friends and family, understand it, because that's how we have freedom. You look at all these other countries in the world that don't have the freedoms we have. There's a lot of political discourse in our country, and a lot of these people who do protest and things I don't think truly understand the freedom they have. So that's something about this holiday too that I think is special, is understanding the freedom you have is essentially on the shoulders of those who fought before us, like the Vietnam veterans I was talking about, or like your dad, or World War II in Korea and all these other guys. So that's what it means to me. an important holiday. I think it's one of the most important ones we have.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Travis. Thank you so much for your service to this great nation.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Travis Quinlan, one of the 3 gentlemen who are being honored by the Central Veterans Association. They're honored guests. They, 10 years ago, were deployed to the Middle East with the Red Bull Division. Yeah, a nice young man, Travis Quinlan, one of our guests that we visited with last night. As I mentioned, we also did a taped interview with David Kirkpatrick, one of the 3 individuals that are being honored on Saturday. And I'll be starting that interview here momentarily. Just want to remind you again, tomorrow we're going to talk about winter weather, as it's Winter Hazardous Awareness Week this week. Monday, we'll have some folks in from the fall play at Faribault High School. Jerry hosts the show on Tuesday. We'll visit with the Faribault Chamber folks on Wednesday next week. Julie Fox and Laura McCauley will be with us next Thursday. Yep, next Thursday is actually a week before Thanksgiving already. My, oh my, where's November going? And then next Friday, we'll be visiting with some folks about a fundraiser, too, next Friday on our AM Minnesota show. So, we look forward to those programs. And now, we hear from one of the other veterans that are being honored on Saturday. Patrick joins us here on AM Minnesota. David, I certainly appreciate your time.
Oh, no problem.
You are one of 3 individuals that are being honored this Saturday. You're honored guests because you were involved in the Red Bull Division, and I did not recall that it has been 10 years since your deployment with the Red Bull Division.
That is correct.
You went to the Middle East.
Yes.
Can you recall that 10 years ago?
Oh, I can recall a few things from that time, yeah.
Yeah. So when you first found out you were going to be deployed, were you excited? Were you nervous?
A little bit of both. Excited to, actually be called and serve your country on a federal level like that overseas. But at the same time, you're nervous because it is still a combat zone, and you're going to be thousands of miles away from friends and family.
Yeah. What did you do in the military?
I was an infantryman.
You were in the Army?
I was in the Army National Guard here in Minnesota. At the time, we drilled out of the Owatonna Armory, and then later on, we merged with Winona.
So that's a little ways from home, too, actually.
Not too bad. A little under 2 hours.
And how long did you serve?
I was in the National Guard for 9 years.
You must have enjoyed it.
Parts of it, yes. Sometimes, it's just like any other job that, we just got to do what you got to do to get it done.
How long was your deployment?
Between mobilization and then the actual deployment and then coming home was right under 24 months.
And you had just the one deployment?
No, after that, I was deployed to Kuwait from 2011 to 2012.
Yeah, and there's been some people that have had 6 and 7 tours, right?
That is correct, yes.
Which is another crazy thing about this particular war in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
You feel fortunate that you didn't have to go over that many times?
I do. I feel like the 2 times I went was enough, but other people, I know, they just they crave it. If, the adventure, or maybe it's the money, so it's kind of dependent on the person and whether or not they want to be deployed.
Was it dangerous over there, David?
Yes, it was. We did convoy security over there. You never knew what was going to be on the side of the road on any given day.
Yeah. Well, we certainly appreciate your service. You come from a long line of veterans, do you?
I was one of the first in my family.
So what prompted you to do it?
I recall September 11th when I was in high school. I was in 10th grade at the time. And kind of seeing that lit a fire inside me. And I kind of wanted to be part of something bigger and do something for my country that's, given me the opportunity to do whatever I want and be whatever I want. So I decided that I should give back a little.
Is it kind of frustrating because this war in the Middle East has passed a quarter century now? Actually been 4 different wars.
It is. You'd like to see all the troops to come home, and with all the talk of troop drawdown in the Middle East and this and that, you would think that after a while, someone would get the ball rolling on that.
We've had, what, 3 different presidents involved in this?
Yeah.
So it's been a while. Well, I mean, since your deployment, it's been 3 different presidents. It's actually been more than that, going back 25 years.
Correct. Yes, it has been.
But you just did what you were told, right?
Yes.
That's the long and the short of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So how cool is it to be honored during Veterans Day?
Oh, it's a very big honor and a very humbling experience. Me personally, I don't really like a lot of recognition for what I've done over there in my military career. I feel like it's just something I was raised to do, kind of giving back in one way or another.
What does Veterans Day mean to you?
To me, it means just to recognize those who have served that are still living. I know a lot of people get Veterans Day and Memorial Day confused a lot of the time. So Veterans Day is just to celebrate those who have served and are still serving to this day in one way or another.
And Memorial Day is to honor the extreme sacrifice, the supreme sacrifice that many did for us, right?
That is correct.
You're going to be participating in the flag raising on Saturday, right?
Yes, I am.
You've done this in the past?
I've done it a few times for Veterans Day, and I think one or 2 times for Memorial Day as well.
And it probably hits you the same every time.
Yes, it did.
Is it pretty emotional?
For me, it's just like I said, it's a huge honor to be asked to participate in these events, and not normally a emotional guy, but I mean inside, brings back a lot of fond memories and scary times from the past.
I would be remiss, David, if I didn't ask you. I don't know if you're an NFL fan or not, but you probably have heard about the protests, the national anthem. Do you have any opinion on that?
A little. For me, I understand where they're coming from and what they need to protest, and at the same point in time, I feel like it's maybe the wrong thing they should be protesting during. I feel like there may be better outlets than the national anthem, because a lot of times people misconstrue their protests against something, when their protest is just protesting the national anthem.
Well, they believe it's disrespecting our flag. A lot of people believe that. Do you believe that?
I don't think so. I mean, that's part of one of our unalienable rights, is the right to free speech, and I feel like a lot of people just get caught up in the name calling, or just they're protesting the flag and they're just doing it to upset people and cause a scene.
Yeah, and you fought for that right to protest, right?
Correct.
And the flag is a symbol of our country.
It is.
Well, I'm going to let you go. I sure appreciate your time, and we will look forward to. I don't know if I'll be able to make it on Saturday. I might be knee deep and heading over to do a broadcast of a football game or something. I think it's unfortunate that we have high school volleyball and state football on the same day and on Veterans Day too, but I don't make those calls either.
Well, it is what it is.
Yeah, but we wish you the very best. And again, David, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you for your support.
But the Knights are playing their best volley. Hope to see you Saturday on the north lawn of the Rice County Courthouse for Veterans Day observances, courtesy of the Central Vets Association.